Little Town Hero, a gorgeous cel-shaded RPG from Gamefreak, seemed like a reason to be excited, and for the last year leading up to it, I was. And then I played it. The game starts with you taking the role of a young man named Axe who lives in this small town. His father disappeared and left him and his mother to fend for themselves, which seems to be a narrative theme Gamefreak likes to put in their games. Little Town Hero takes place entirely in the titular town. Running around the town is nice at first. The cel-shaded visuals look decent, with the art style reminding me of Ni no Kuni in a way. The music, which is composed by Toby Fox, is pleasant to listen to, even if it mostly fades into the background. Every story beat takes place somewhere in the town, despite the opening describing Axe as someone who desperately wants to see the outside world. A lot of RPGs start out this way as an opening to a much grander adventure, but not Little Town Hero. Instead, Axe repeatedly tells everyone how much he wants to see the outside world, only for that plot thread to be dropped about halfway through the game. You end up obtaining a red stone, which gives you the power to fight monsters and is the center for most of the game's mechanics. Battles in Little Town Hero are turn-based, but it feels a bit more like a mix between a board game and a tabletop card game. You move around a board and draw cards to perform actions in battle. Here's how that works. Battle centers around ideas, called isits, and actions known as dazits. To turn an idea into an action, you have to expend some of your stone's power, which comes in the form of points. Each idea has a fixed cost ranging from 0 points to 6. At the beginning of each battle, you start out with 3 points available to spend, and you can reach a maximum of 6. You gain more points as the battle wears on, but this won't carry over between fights. At the start of each new fight, you'll be back at 3 points. Between turns, however, your points will be replenished, meaning if you've charged up your stone to 6 points, you'll have that total available to you at the beginning of every turn from that point onward. There are 3 types of actions: attack, defense, and special. Attack actions can be used once per turn, defense actions can be used until they break, and special actions are one-time use only, but apply effects of varying types. Balancing them and thinking strategically is key to victory, but the ideas dealt to you are random and at times incredibly frustrating. You can upgrade ideas through the use of Eureka points, which you spend in a skill tree to add strength or special effects to your idea, but you can't control when these ideas are doled out to you. All too often, I found that I had a slate full of defensive ideas that I couldn't afford at my stone's current charge level, or a handful of attacks and special ideas that would leave me at a major disadvantage and force me to take damage. Toward the latter half of the game, monsters would often have anywhere between 6 and 8 actions available in a single turn, some with devastating special effects, while I'd be stuck trying to figure out how to make 3 or 4 points give me enough room to survive. Some may relish this challenge, but I didn't. To damage an enemy, you would first have to shatter all of their actions and have one of yours left over to attack them with, and it has to be an attack action or idea, despite defensive and special actions having attack stats of their own. Often battles would drag on for over an hour while I would wait for an opportunity to attack a foe. The longer these fights go on, the more ideas you use, and your ideas don't replenish until you spend BP, which is a currency you gain through shattering all your foes' ideas or by taking damage. The battle system crushed my enjoyment of what could have been an otherwise fun series of fights. After each turn against a monster, you change locations on a Mario Party-esque map by rolling a die to determine how many spaces you'll travel across the board between 1 and 4. Each spot on the board represents a real place in the town. Every major section of the town makes up its own board, and battles are confined to that space with the exception of the final boss battle, which takes place across multiple boards. The monster follows you wherever you go, but you can find allies scattered across the map to help you. Each ally has a special effect all their own, and these effects can range from damaging the enemy directly or its actions, or healing you. They're a helpful addition and I did my best to reach them, but most times I'd find the dice wouldn't roll in my favor and I'd miss them. There's an effect on certain actions that will allow you to move up to 4 spaces freely in any direction, but you can't go around the monster, meaning that even with free mobility, I was sometimes unable to get to where I needed to be. Overall, I didn't feel the board added anything to the gameplay. Moving around could have provided an element of strategy, as you can only use support from an ally once per battle, but coupling this with a random dice roll means you just don't have any real control over where you're going, leaving your fate to luck instead. Battles with other characters happen often and are significantly less complicated. When you're battling against another character, you no longer run around the map, and support options are limited to just one character beside you. I liked these fights the most. They felt strategic and victories felt earned far more than they did against monsters. But what about what happens outside of battle? Well, there isn't much really. You can pick up side quests, but they seldom amount to anything more than running from one spot to another and talking to an NPC. When you're running around the little town, the seams start to show in a major way. The town itself feels mostly lifeless. It's big, but there's almost nothing to do in it. There's a cheese shop that's used in a single side quest, a tavern, a general store, a farm, and a house you can enter. That's it. Nothing meaningful happens in any of these spots. You can't buy anything at any of the stores, there's no currency to collect or inventory to manage. The town serves as a staging ground for monster battles, and that's about it. There's very little variation in NPC models as well, with somewhere between 5 and 10 in total. In some instances, I'd see multiples of the same model within one scene. Overall, it feels like the team at Gamefreak didn't have the time or resources to fully realize their vision. I was left with the sense that their priority was to ship Little Town Hero rather than to spend the time required to refine it into the good game it could have become. Even the main characters feel as though not much care went into their animations. Axe has a grand total of 2 attack animations and possibly 3 or 4 that you'll see him perform in cutscenes. There's no voice acting either. Every cutscene felt the same after a while thanks to the lack of unique animations or dynamic camera angles. At some points when trying to get Axe to run, he'd instead slide along the ground motionless for a few frames before the game registered he was supposed to be running. Little technical issues like this plague the game. The game often froze for 2 or 3 seconds when loading a cutscene. The first few times this happened, I was worried my game had crashed, but it became such a common occurrence that I became used to it and realized this was just how Little Town Hero loads cutscenes. Similarly, the story serves as window dressing to get you into as many battles as possible. Most of the main story beats consist of you running to one spot, reading some dialogue, only to run to another spot and repeat the process until you end up in an unnecessarily drawn-out fight against a monster. With each monster you defeat, you inch closer to figuring out who's behind all the monsters suddenly appearing in your peaceful town, but the story is too predictable to make that a good reason to continue. From the moment I saw the main antagonist, I knew that's who I'd be fighting in the final battle just from their character design. Characters don't undergo any meaningful changes, and moments that are meant to be emotional instead just fall flat thanks to poor writing. Over the course of its 8 chapters, I realized my hype for Little Town Hero died by the first monster fight. After that, I was just bored, waiting for the game to end. The final boss fight, which doubles down on the fun-destroying randomness of the battle system, left me feeling like I was playing an infuriating Mario Party minigame instead of an RPG. Being boring is just about the worst thing a game can be. I've loved games that are challenging or frustrating. I've even loved games that are unfair or that I'm just incredibly bad at. Little Town Hero's problems are too many. The locking up before cutscenes, predictable story, and combat that isn't just unfair or unrewarding, but actively not fun, led me to feel that if I weren't reviewing the game, I would have dropped it after the first chapter. It pains me to say it, but I hate Little Town Hero. It feels like a tech demo wrapped around a kernel of a good idea and executed in the worst possible way. If you're looking for an RPG on Switch, do yourself a favor and get Dragon Quest XI-S instead. That wraps it up for our review of Little Town Hero on the Nintendo Switch. Make sure to subscribe to GameXplained for more reviews just like this one. Make sure to also ring that notification bell to be the first to know every time we upload a new video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.